When you picture an old western town, you usually imagine it having a church, dusty dirt roads, and a saloon with those swinging doors. But in the very early days of people moving west, there weren't really proper towns. It was more like groups of tents with mostly men, which created a big opportunity. Back in the eastern parts of the country, women typically didn't go to saloons, and they followed strict Victorian-style morals and behavior. This kind of moral code didn't fit well with the untamed frontier. Smart men and women could see that there was a need for certain places in these communities. Once a saloon was built, that's when what we think of as a classic old western town would start to take shape. The arrival of women with a different reputation. In many old western towns, there were some women who weren't known for their good behavior. In the beginning, they would take on jobs like doing laundry or sewing to hide what they did. But pretty soon, the owners of saloons would tempt them to work there, or the women themselves would ask for jobs in the saloons. It was a way for women to make money that they wouldn't have been able to earn otherwise. Some women even started their own businesses, and these women played a crucial role in the town's growth. The men had names for these women like Soiled Dove and Painted Ladies. A day in the life of a saloon girl. When we think of saloon girls, we often link them to prostitutes. While that did happen, most saloon girls were there to entertain the men so they would stay longer and buy more drinks, which meant more money for the saloon. Many saloon girls were either widows without other means of support or young girls looking for something different than farm work. The girls' job was to dance with the men and get them to buy drinks. The men paid the full price for the girls' drink, not realizing it was often just tea or colored water. The girls earned a small commission for every drink they sold, plus they got a weekly salary. Surprisingly, many saloon girls made more money dancing with the men than they would have as prostitutes. Then came the madams. Some enterprising women started their own brothels. Usually these were former prostitutes who had retired from that business. There were different kinds of brothels. Some were just a couple of rooms shared by a few women, while others were fancy houses where each girl had her own beautifully furnished room. The women renting these rooms from the madam usually gave her about half of their earnings. Many madams became known for their charitable work. It's quite possible that a madam funded the construction of a school or a church in the town. Some even helped their girls start their own businesses, like stores or restaurants. The madams played a vital role in the development of the Old West. The risks and challenges saloon girls and prostitutes both faced a lot of dangers. Even though saloon girls didn't typically offer sexual services, they were still at risk of physical harm. They often carried a small knife or pistol for protection. Prostitutes had even more problems, with one of the biggest being the risk of disease. They could easily catch illnesses like tuberculosis and syphilis. Some upscale brothels would check the men for diseases before providing services, but that didn't always work. Condoms were just starting to become available, but most men didn't like using them. Another danger was the risk of unwanted pregnancy. Birth control options were very limited. So many prostitutes relied on methods like tracking their menstrual cycles or douching after sex to try to avoid getting pregnant. Sadly, many women died from unsafe abortions. There was also a constant threat of violence, with beatings and even murder of prostitutes happening quite frequently. What happened to all the brothels? From the mid to late 1800s, brothels were considered a necessary evil and often ignored by law enforcement and tolerated by the people in the towns. However, as the 1900s approached, these more public brothels started to disappear. This change was due to moral reform efforts, the push for prohibition, the banning of alcohol, and the influence of religious leaders. It's not that brothels completely vanished. They just became less visible and prominent in society.